Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Moose Trail. I'm your host, Chris the Moose Johnson, but today we got a very special episode because we have a co-host. That's right, we're here with Matthew Felsenfeld. What up, Matt?
What's up, Chris? Thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, and it's a little bit of a throwback because what was our first time on air together?
Definitely anchoring together.
Definitely anchoring.
It definitely is a little throwback. I'm excited to be here,
It's going to be a really fun episode today. We got a lot to go over because we have Will Lewin in the Hot Hierarchy going over college football playoff rankings. We have Jake Gruel in the Heisman Hierarchy talking about the Heisman finalists and where they should be. And, of course, we're going to be breaking down the NFL, Matt. We're going to have a lot of fun today, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited, man.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll send it to you, Will, and let's get right to it.
Thank you, Moose, and welcome back, everyone, to the Hot Hierarchy. Will Lewin here, and what a chaotic time to be a college football fan, so much so that my hair is just completely falling out. It's an absolutely unreal time right now in the NCAAF world, and the College Football Committee isn't quite seeing the same pictures that I'm seeing with a lot of these college football teams. On top of that, our very own UNLV Rebels possibly getting snubbed of a playoff spot. We're going to talk about all that and more in this week's edition of the Hot Hierarchy. Let's get right into things here. Talking about teams ranked 11 through 25 in the playoff poll first. Of course, leading the charge at number 11, it's got to be an SEC team, and of course, it's the Alabama Crimson Tide. Miami dropped 6 spots to 12, just under them with a 10-2 record after their loss to Syracuse over the weekend. Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Arizona State all jumping up 1 spot in the ranking, with Iowa State jumping over Clemson, who dropped 5 spots in the rankings. Then BYU, Missouri, UNLV, and Illinois also moving up in the rankings as well. We've got Syracuse, an unranked team last week, coming into the rankings for the first time, and for the first time in the college football playoff poll, as well as Colorado moving up 2 spots. Army now back into the rankings, and Memphis making their first playoff appearance in the college football playoff poll. Now, let's talk about the Hot Hierarchy and how it looks in comparison. At number 11 is going to be South Carolina and the Gamecocks. They've got them and Arizona State moving up 5 spots to the 11 and 12 spot, respectively. Then we have Alabama and Boise State remaining stagnant this week at 13 and 14. UNLV right there at that 15 spot, with Miami there at 16, dropping down 6 spots. Iowa State in the mix of all these droppages as they're at 17, moving up 3 spots. Tulane down 6 to 18. Colorado move up 4 to 19. Then Clemson and Army down 6 and 2 spots respectively to 20 and 21. Louisiana not moving in my rankings there at 22. BYU move up a couple spots to 23. And I'm introducing Memphis and Syracuse into the rankings as well. Now let's talk about some scores here on the Hot Hierarchy. The one that's going to stick out the most is going to be that South Carolina-Clemson game. I do see a lot more value in South Carolina than the playoff poll do. They are a 3-loss team. Yes, I understand that, but they have been doing a very good job maintaining pressure throughout the later half of this season and have proved dividends that feel like if all goes well, according to the SEC Championship, the Big Ten Championship, and the ACC Championship, South Carolina might be in there with a shot. But speaking of teams in there with a shot, UNLV making their way to the Mountain West Conference Championship game, but it is going to be on the road against the Broncos. They're heading over to Boise State for the first time in 3 matchups with the Broncos. Obviously, we played them at home at Allegiant Stadium this year, and if you recall last year in that absolute beatdown against Boise State, we played that game at home as well, as we had the higher record. But this time around, Boise State trying to make dividends. You can't see them there on the playoff poll as they are a top 10 team, but in the Hot Hierarchy, I've got them staying stagnant at 14 after what I thought was a pretty decent win against Oregon State at home. I would have thought definitely a lot better job there of the Broncos, since they do have that blue field advantage. But it is going to be a crisp 40 to 45 degrees come the conference championship game, so make sure you're watching that. Miami against Syracuse. I mean, man, oh man, why does this kind of thing happen? Syracuse not really playing dividends this time around in the season. We did see them against them as the UNLV faithful here at Allegiant Stadium, and they did do a really good job. But that Kyle McCord game where he threw 5 interceptions, I mean, really paid dividends. I saw the flaws with Syracuse, but Miami not going to be able to come on top. I do have them 4 spots lower than the playoff poll. Just goes to show how much I don't really value Miami in this race. Then we look at teams like Missouri. Again, not exactly sure sure why they're still in the rankings. They should have been dropped off when they lost to South Carolina. We already talked about how they didn't move in the rankings after that loss to South Carolina, and now they find themselves at 19, which is a spot above UNLV in the playoff poll, which I just find absolutely absurd. BYU still up there in the rankings. They got a decent win against Houston at home, but we look over to the playoff poll, the hot hierarchy poll. We've got teams like Tulane, Louisiana still in it, and if we look over to the matchups coming up, I feel like the big reason why I have Tulane and Army kind of clumped up in this tight spot right there at the middle is because of that AAC championship game. So for here, it doesn't really look like anything crazy. You've got Army at the bottom. They're just going up against an unranked Tulane team. Okay, I'm not going to watch that game. You got UNLV going up against Boise State. They're on the road. Looks like they're going to lose as a 20 seed. Then you've got Clemson taking on SMU. Clemson have been so bad that, these past recent weeks. Not really going to be watching that game. SMU should handle business, hopefully. And then Arizona State, Iowa State, they're neck and neck with each other. Again, not a lot of games going on. As you can see, we've got the championship games coming up. So it is a very much exciting times. But to make it even more exciting, we look over to the hot hierarchy. Oh, okay, here we go. Arizona State 12th. They're trying to make a name for themselves in the college football bracket, surely. Oh, they're going up against Iowa State, who are a couple spots behind them at 17 in the hot hierarchy. Then Boise State and UNLV right there side by side with one another in the Mountain West. They're going to be facing off as the 14-15 matchup in the Mountain West Conference Championship. And then Tulane, I have higher than Army. They're the 18th ranked team in my personal opinion, even after their loss to Memphis last week. And I have made up for that as Memphis are there at the bottom. They're going to be having this kind of bye week before they go into their bowl game. And then the same thing with Louisiana as well. They got that win over UL Monroe. They're playing Marshall, but the Sun Belt Conference not getting any love whatsoever in the rankings at all. But I think Louisiana could make a case for themselves. Excuse me. Do I think they'll be in the playoffs? Probably not. But time will only tell. Now let's get right into the top 10 here. Leading the charge at number 1 for the playoff poll is going to be the Oregon Ducks. It's really been a case of, Oregon against everybody else right now. Not entirely sure why so many experts and so many analysts had Ohio State as the favorites to win the Big Ten. As you can see here, that miserable loss to Michigan, nonetheless at home. Really hate to see Michigan just handling business against Ohio State year in and year out. Not the best time to be a Buckeye fan, but the only ranked win on this slate here is going to be in that Texas A&M rivalry game, the first of its kind since Texas joined the SEC this year. But again, not the greatest matchups. Notre Dame doing a really good job against USC. They get that win. Indiana, Boise State are now in the top 10. Tennessee move all the way up to 7. You've got Georgia moving up 2 spots. Ohio State down 4. I do think that isn't enough for Ohio State, and you'll see that here as I have Oregon at 1, Texas at 2, and Ohio State all the way at the bottom there at 10. Barely making the top 10, might I add. I do value that 3-loss Ole Miss team way more than Ohio State. And if it's me betting on my money, I would take Ole Miss any day of the week. But let's talk about some scores. Going to go back to that USC Notre Dame game. Absolute great job by the Fighting Irish getting the Trojans to their backs against the walls as they get that 49-35 win, even though the Trojans were playing in their beloved Coliseum at home. You talk about great scores. You've got SMU going up against Cal. Remember when Cal was making all of that noise in the middle of the season? SMU doing a good job shutting that down, getting that 38-point win over the weekend. Then we look across, we go over to Indiana, handling the Boilermakers 66-0 over the weekend. Penn State with an all right win against Maryland, did what they were supposed to do, 44-7. But the Ducks against Washington in the border rivalry game there against the Huskies. Absolute great job there by the Ducks. I was privileged enough to watch the game in person with my girlfriend Missy. We had a great time. Freezing temperatures, those, and it's those freezing temperatures that do make me scared for UNLV's matchup against Boise State because we play in an indoor stadium. I don't know if we'll be able to get the job done, but I'm wishing our Rebels luck. Now, nonetheless, we're going to get into next week's matchups. And again, not a whole lot of games going on. Penn State's going to be going against Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. Texas is going to take on Georgia in the SEC Championship. Clemson's going to be taking on SMU in the ACC Championship. And Boise State are going to be taking on UNLV in the Mountain West Conference Championship. Now, again, this looks nice and sweet, and, I do feel like it is a little bit all over the place. But then we do look over to the hot hierarchy rankings. It just seems a little more organized. You've got essentially the top 5 teams who are going to be going into conference championship games, besides Notre Dame, who is an FBS independent, so they're not actually in a conference. They don't have a championship game to play, even if they wanted to. And lower down the list, you see SMU playing on Clemson. The playoff poll and I both agree on that sense, where Clemson should not be higher than 17 or anywhere near that mark. But we do have SMU taking on them at the 4th spot. Definitely controversial for me, but I do value SMU a lot. And the comparison that I'm going to make is that 2017, 2018 Clemson team. You look at their schedules, you look at who they played. Granted, the teams were completely separate, but the way that they went about handling their business was very identical. And Clemson was a automatic top 4 team, whereas SMU is being questioned. And as you can see here, all the way at number 8 in the playoff poll. Not sure if I agree with that, but we are going to go into what the brackets look like here. Now, we've got the usual suspects at the top spot. Oregon takes the 1 spot, Texas takes the 2 spot, then SMU at 8, there will be 3, Boise State at 10 will be 4, and then we've got Arizona State making up that 12th team as the number 16 seed, which is just so far out, especially when you take into consideration that Arizona State are a Big 12 team. They're supposed to be one of the Power 4 conferences. You've got Tennessee taking on Ohio State, Indiana taking on Georgia, Alabama taking on Notre Dame, and Arizona State's first game will be on the road to Penn State. Some interesting matchups here nonetheless, but I feel like you kind of go through these and you know who's going to win these games. I mean, Ohio State at home, yeah, they lost to Michigan. You think they're going to let that happen again? No shot. Indiana on the road to Georgia. Come on now, Athens is a completely separate environment than Indiana will ever be used to. And I love Coach Sig, but I don't think the Hoosiers get the job done. And Alabama on the road against Notre Dame. This could be pretty interesting. We've seen Alabama slip up, and we've seen Notre Dame take full advantage of every mistake that's been given to them throughout the season. And again, just eliminating the NIU loss. And Notre Dame are one of the best teams in the nation by far. But that could be an interesting game. And then Arizona State at Penn State. It could be a coin flip. Arizona State could show up. Coach Dillingham getting the Sun Devils in the right mindset to try and win this game. But Penn State at home, Big Ten teams in general at home, is definitely something scary to behold. But if we look over to the hot hierarchy, you can kind of see the differences in pace here. Again, we've got Oregon, Texas, SMU, but Arizona State are instead going to flip-flop with Boise State. Boise State will take on Notre Dame on the road. Then it's Ohio State at Georgia, Ole Miss at Penn State, and Tennessee at Indiana. I feel like these matchups are much more enjoyable and much more favorable to watch. I mean, Tennessee, Indiana. Tennessee is essentially entering as the 2nd, maybe 3rd best team in the SEC, and Indiana is entering as the 2nd, maybe 3rd best team of the Big Ten. Ole Miss, 2nd, maybe 3rd best team of the SEC. Penn State, 2nd, maybe 3rd best team of the Big Ten. Ohio State, obviously the 2nd best team in that Big Ten. Georgia, obviously the 2nd best team in the SEC. And then you've got the independent school taking on the best non-Power 4 school. Like, that's just how I see this going. And that's why I thought the college football bracket was created. But according to the playoff committee, that's not the case. They're still looking at it as a business. And quite frankly, it is making a lot of college football fans mad, including myself. So taking what we have here from the hot hierarchy and now kind of, just looking at the differences in the college football playoff bracket, I mean, I don't think it really takes a genius to figure out what's wrong with this. I mean, if the standings hold the way that they are right now, if I were Oregon, quite frankly, I would throw a Big Ten championship game for the ultimate goal of a national championship. I mean, it'd be a great way to get my substitute, my backup players in for a rep, as they will be starters next year. So might as well have them do it in arguably the biggest games of their lives so far, because in return, instead of playing a top-level team from the SEC or the Big Ten, instead I would be able to get a first-round bye in Arizona State at home, and then what's my road get? Boise State? Seriously? It's hotter in Boise right now than it is in Oregon. These are just so many problems with this. And again, just looking at this, for so many of these teams, I would honestly throw away the Big Ten championship, the SEC championship, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to go about it smartly and win the national championship, I really don't think it's that big of a deal to win your conference championship. But that is going to do it here on the hot hierarchy in week 15 of the college football playoff rankings. It's been such a great season so far, and I can't wait to see where everything goes. Hopefully we'll be able to get another episode out for you guys, but only time will tell. Nonetheless, you'll see me right here in the spring doing my thing. Might be switching it up, possibly some college basketball for you guys in the spring, but I am going to send it over to my co-star Jake, who's talking about the Heisman. Again, it's been such an enjoyment, such a pleasure to be with you guys, and I can't wait to see you soon.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jake Guell, and welcome to the final episode of Heisman Watch. We've made it through an amazing college football season, and it's finally down to who is Jake Guell picking to win the Heisman. We've speculated all year long about which player will make that list and be part of college football royalty, and it's come down to two players. And that is, as everyone's talked about, Travis Hunter in Colorado and Ashton Jeanty in Boise State. So, in a typical UFC fashion, we're going to compare them side to side in a tale of the tape. So, taking a look at everything we've seen here this season, we're going to go with receptions and carries. Obviously, Travis Hunter, being a wide receiver, didn't have as much. He only had 92 carries, but it's what he did with those carries. Ashton Jeanty, of course, having 312 carries with 2,288 yards, short of Barry Sanders' record, but still history-making nonetheless. Over on Travis Hunter's side, at wide receiver, 1,152 yards. Touchdowns, Ashton Jeanty has 28 touchdowns rushing, while on the receiving end of the ball, Travis Hunter has 14. Now you look at those numbers and you see, well, they're a little skewed. Obviously, Jeanty has more than Hunter. And then you look at the odds right down there. Clearly, Travis Hunter at the sportsbooks is the favorite to win the Heisman, while Jeanty is a little bit far behind, but is still in second place. Now, you can say there's arguments for both. The sportsbooks obviously agree that it is a case-closed argument, but what does Jake Guell think? This is what we've been talking about all season, and I just want to tell you how I feel about it. Ashton Jeanty is an absolutely talented running back. You've never seen anything like him in our lifetime besides Barry Sanders. And it is incredible to see what he has done. And I do think that he's worthy of winning the Heisman. However, and this is where I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, I think Travis Hunter, in fact, I know Travis Hunter is going to be the winner of the Heisman Award this year, and I'll tell you why. A couple years ago, Shohei Ohtani went into baseball as a magical unicorn of the sport, a two-way player who could play both sides of the ball. And instantly, people looked at him and said, this guy can do it all. He's worthy of being the MVP. When Travis Hunter went to Colorado, he was a two-way star. You've never seen a guy who can be on a wide receiver, go get a touchdown, go on the sideline, get a cup of Gatorade, get back on the field, and intercept the ball on defense. It is simply remarkable to see what Travis Hunter has done. Prime effect aside, he has been talented 100% this entire season. And I think that mixed with his branding, his star power, there's so much that goes into the reasons why Travis Hunter is an absolutely talented individual all around. And that success that he's had in college is going to very much translate into the NFL. Jeanty, I think he will be a very talented player in professional football in the NFL. And we'll see him get drafted in the first round as well. But when you think of that longevity aspect, I do think Travis Hunter has the edge. So I'm laying it down here. Travis Hunter will be your Heisman Award winner. It's going to be incredible to see where these fellas go in the NFL. And we're going to do a little crystal ball here because we are an NFL-related show. So with my draft picks, absolutely, #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Travis Hunter. He will go to whichever lucky team right now that Moose will talk about later in the season who is going to go #1 overall. Ashton Jeanty, I just have a really good feeling whenever there's a Boise State star, Jerry Jones loves those guys. So Dallas Cowboys, congratulations. You're getting yourself a running back and a very good one at that. So with that being said, we finally made it to the end of Heisman Watch. Thank you so much for sticking with me all season as we showcase the best of the best in college football. I can't wait to see how these Heisman results come in, and it's going to be a great end of the season. Enjoy the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Also, go Rebels. Once again, my name is Jake Guell. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much, Jake, for the breakdown. I mean, we got to see if Ashton Jeanty or it's going to be Travis Hunter. I think it's going to be Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I think Jeanty has to have an amazing championship game and then has to do something in the playoffs maybe. But honestly, I think Travis Hunter has this one locked up.
I really do too. So we'll see what's going to happen though with the NFL coming in right here because we got a lot to go over. It's a lot going on. We have 2 weeks to go over. We have the Thanksgiving break. We have Week 12 and Week 13 to go over. So we got a lot to cover. So let's get into it with our Week 14 standings right here. That's right. We have the Lions are at #1, Chiefs are #2, 3 Bills, 4 Vikings, 5 Eagles, 6 Packers, 7 Steelers, 8 Chargers. I mean, kind of staying the same from what it has been the last few weeks. Not too much of a change up the last few games. I mean, we kind of know who's going to win this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, the top teams have been the top teams this year. And, some of these top teams have been a little bit of a surprise. The Vikings, the Chargers, the Broncos. But a lot of these teams have been top teams in the leagues for a while. And there's a reason they are, due to the coaching, due to the philosophy that they're taught, and, honestly, due to the players that they have. The Lions right now, they have a dual-wheel punch plus an air attack. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Bills, Josh Allen is playing amazing. Like, I can go down the list of all these really good teams. I really think that this year is going to be very, very competitive in the playoffs, and I'm really excited to see that.
I am too, but we can't just talk about all the good teams. So we got to talk about the back end teams. So here's our back end grouping right here, because there's a lot to go over with them. We have the Buccaneers. We have the Cowboys, we have the Dolphins, we have the Bears, sadly, of course. We have the Raiders, 31. I mean, they're battling for the number 1 pick right now. I mean, they're bottom 3. We have 3 or 4 teams tied, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it. There's some teams down here that maybe shouldn't be down here. Just a couple looking. The Buccaneers, the Cowboys, maybe the Dolphins, 49ers, and the Bengals. I'd say those are the teams that probably shouldn't be down here right now during this time of the season. But there is still time left for these teams to try to battle back for a playoff spot. You have to remember, if you look back, I think Denver has the last wild card spot, and they're 8-5. And if you look, the Colts are 6-7. Dolphins are 5-7. So they still have a chance. There still is a chance. Even the Bengals still have a chance. The way they've been playing, it's kind of been sad. That they can't win a game with Joe Burrow having outstanding numbers. But truthfully and honestly, Moose, I really think that a lot of these teams that are at the bottom needed to be at the bottom. Let's say the Giants, the Raiders, and the Jaguars. They've all been having tough seasons lately. And even you can even say the Panthers and the Patriots too. All those teams have all been having tough seasons lately and really do need that draft capital. So it's going to be interesting to see who actually gets that number 1 pick, though, because between the Giants, Raiders, and Jaguars, they're all looking to tank. I don't know about the Jaguars, but at least the Giants. I know the Giants have been scouting Shador maybe even more than the Raiders have. So it's going to be very interesting at the end of the year to see where that comes. And then I'll talk about my Bears a little bit. Pretty disappointing year. If you lose 5 different games, we should be probably I don't even know what it is, like what? 9-3 maybe right now, or something like that. And it sucks, but I think the changes were made that needed to be, and I'm really excited to see what we can do with Thomas Brown to finish off the year. It's kind of like a little tryout for him. So it's interesting to look at the bottom of the leaderboards.
It really is, but we got to go over to our past selves, because we got to recap some of the games that we know we had to talk about. But there's a little bit of a past selves to us, because we got to go over to the Broncos versus the Raiders, and that's going to be sending it over to you, previous Chris and Matt at Allegiant Stadium.
And hello, everybody. Welcoming us live here at Allegiant Stadium, our first live game breakdown right here for the Moose Trail. And I got a very special guest with me today. I got Matthew Felsenfeld. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, Moose. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Well, couldn't be saying a little bit better for the Raiders, of course, if the Raiders could win a game, but they can't right now. Struggling. How do you feel that the game went right now for both teams?
Honestly, I thought the Raiders started off the game really strong. They held their own going into halftime. They had the lead. And I feel like after halftime is when the Broncos really started to creep back up on them, and that's when they lost and gave it up. And that's something that we've seen all year is the Raiders could stay in the game, but then they ended up giving it up at some point down the road. So they need to stay in, and they really need to, for these next couple games, really try to finish games, especially these division opponents like the Broncos. They had an edge over the Broncos for the last 8 years, and now the Broncos just flipped the script. So they got to get back to being that dominant football team that they were and keeping that edge in the first half.
And we saw Bo Nix throw for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns today, had a really good game. The defense was flying on all angles, didn't really give Gardner Minshew a chance. We heard Antonio Pierce say Gardner Minshew doesn't look good right now for his shoulder injury. This is, of course, right after the game. And Max Crosby not too happy after the press conference going, I effing live for this. So not really a good look right now in the Raiders locker room.
No, absolutely not. And, a lot of the guys in the locker room were talking about how they want to just go on to next week. You know, a lot of the questions were 7 in a row, 7 losses in a row, 7 in a row. And it's a lot of the guys don't look at it that way. They're just trying to get one win every week. They're not worried about the last 7 they're worried about the next win. So I think a lot of the guys are going to clear their heads from this one and really go into next week knowing that we really need to win a game. We really need a win here to wipe all this and to reset our minds. And it seems like none of the team has given up. That's the biggest thing, is the team has not given up. When you talk to Max and you talk to most of these guys, you know, they all talk about, like, we still want to be Raiders. We still want to win. And, you know, that's something that you might not see around the league when teams start to lose.
And thank you again so much, Matt, for coming in and helping us with this breakdown, because this is our first live one. Hopefully we can get you in studio at one of these days to get you on camera with me. But, hey, that will be up for us here at Allegiant Stadium. Las Vegas falls to Denver 29-19. We'll send it back to you, future Chris, at the desk.
Thank you, past selves. I mean, I think we're pretty smart from back then.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I had a lot of fun going to that game, and it was a good one, honestly.
Oh, yeah, I mean, both of us very high on Bo Nix, so it was very nice to see him gunslinging out there.
Yes.
I mean, I had that huge draft preview with the segments last year, and we just had to break down where Bo Nix was
Same here.
at.
I remember he was one of my top quarterbacks. I picked him and Caleb Williams, so they're both stars right now. So.
Oh, absolute stars right now in the NFL. But that's not all we got to talk about, because we have the Eagles versus the Ravens. And that game right there, I mean, hey, talk about battle of MVPs, huh?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, talk about two of the top teams when it comes to playing the other division. I mean, the Ravens, I mean, Lamar Jackson's only lost to Daniel Jones one time in the NFC. And I know the Eagles are really good against AFC teams, so you know, it was a great matchup between two powerhouses right now with amazing athletes at quarterback and at running back and great defenses. Like it was one of those matchups that, like, they're kind of so even. It was kind of weird, and it was a great. I was really surprised. The Eagles came out on top. I thought the Ravens would come out on top, but the Eagles showed a lot of resilience, and like they really proved to me that they are a top team in the league 100%. Especially since like the beginning of the season where it was a little iffy. Now they've really solidified it for me. So yeah, I mean, what a great win for them.
Oh yeah, and I mean, when you talk about it, like think about, like, we have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, all three in the top 5 of the MVP standings, to be honest. So it's just nuts to have those 3 guys in the same game, and then to have the Eagles come out on top because of Saquon Barkley rushing for 100 yards, having a touchdown. And I don't even know how he had for his receiving yards, so it's probably around 150 if you want to think about what he normally puts up. He's insane when he gets the ball in his hands. And the Eagles, he's on pace for around 2,500 yards from scrimmage this year, and he's on pace to break the rushing record in the same year. Like, I don't know how you don't give him MVP.
Well, what's kind of crazy is so is Derrick Henry. They're like neck and neck right now after the last game on trying to beat that record with Eric Dickerson. And he even said, I mean, go do it. He said, go break my record, boys. So, you know, I'm really excited to see that running. You know, when running back play has been so disregarded in the last couple years, to see Genty come out and to see Saquon come out and to see Henry come out on these teams and really show the running back position matters. It really does, especially after the Giants didn't pay him, let him go. You know, it's just awesome to see, and I really think that both of these guys are two of the best guys in the league to really watch, especially Saquon when it comes to how he goes about the game and how he doesn't give up. In the second half, that's where he had all of his yards. He was looking forward to the second half instead of giving up, saying, oh, I haven't done anything in the first. Like, he looks forward to having to break out and do those kind of things. And Derrick Henry, you heard something from Gronkowski the other day on ESPN, or it might have been his podcast, actually. He was sitting there talking about how he's a role model, Derrick Henry, how he doesn't do anything off the field but just make sure he's a good guy, and he's just always working on his body, always working on his game. You know, it's just two great guys that, you know, deserve to break that record.
They really do deserve to break that record, and they deserve to put the running backs back on the market like they have this year, because I don't know how you don't pay a top-tier running back now, especially seeing how these two have changed their teams. But that's not all, because we have to talk about the snow game that was absolutely insane to watch in Buffalo, with the Buffalo Bills absolutely trouncing the San Francisco 49ers, and we saw some history.
Yeah, man. I mean, the 49ers couldn't hold on. It was an obvious case of this team plays in the snow a lot, this team does not play in the snow a lot. The 49ers were fumbling the ball everywhere. couldn't get a real groove going. And don't get me wrong, it is super hard to throw the ball in the snow. Like, I don't even know if I can do that. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying for their play at that level, it's just, you know, they got absolutely whomped. And then you lose Christian McCaffrey in the game, and your team is all hurt, and you guys are actually fighting for a top 12 draft pick right now, really. You know, it's just kind of, it's sad for the 49er fans, especially after last couple seasons they've had. But for Bills fans, I mean, you should be nothing but happy. I mean, that's the glory of getting a number 1 seed, number 2 seed to play at home. That you get to play in the snow and play in those type of conditions that other teams don't get to play in. And, you know, and it showed right there. And also just how good they've been since Stephon Diggs has left. I'm not saying they wouldn't have been good this year with him, but just what they've been able to do, because everybody counted them out with him leaving, is kind of amazing. Josh Allen has really stepped up his game, and you know it was amazing to see him throw a touchdown and Amari Cooper have enough sense to pitch it back to him and him score the like. I was playing him in fantasy this week, and that was just nuts. Yeah, it was crazy, man. And yeah, what a crazy game.
Man, I mean, when you talk about it, like you said, like, he's the first ever in NFL history to have a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown in the same game. And the passing touchdown was a passing touchdown to himself.
I know.
It's just insane to even think about that you can do that stuff in the NFL game. I mean, let alone be able to do it against the 49ers, a team that was in the Super Bowl last year.
I know, it's nuts.
And they won by 25. Like, it's not even a close game. Like, the Niners had no chance in that game. So it was absolutely fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like you said, Bills fans, I couldn't imagine what you're feeling right now. Besides, we're going to the
happy.
Super Bowl right now. You beat the Chiefs, you've beat the Niners, both teams that were in the Super Bowl last year, and you did it convincingly. But
Definitely.
I mean, we got to talk about also, I think, a little bit of a game that I know you have a lot to say about, because I mean, I think the Lions should have lost that game.
Yeah, we can talk about the Bears-Lions game. You know, the Bears last 3 weeks should have beaten all 3 of their opponents in their division, who all have top 6 teams in the league right now, and due to coaching mishaps have not, and you can blame Cable a little bit, he's still learning, but you know, Eberflus didn't call the timeout. At the end of the day, the team was so divided and there was so much emotions going that I heard it today, you know, if you brought him back Monday morning, Tuesday morning, players might have just walked out because of just like the way that we have lost so many times this year. Like we've talked about, we could be a totally different team. We could be one of the top teams in the league. Mm-hmm. So, and you know, there's a lot of reports coming out saying that, you know, well, maybe Poles wanted to fire him last year and he wasn't given the green light from the ownership family. You know, I'm just excited to now see where we're going to move forward, especially with Thomas Brown and the guy that he is. But the Lions played well in the first half. Ben Johnson really put it to us in the first half. But, I mean, Eberflus wasn't lying, came out at halftime and said the second half's going to be different. It 100% was. We should have won the game. Mm-hmm. Caleb took a sack, but it also wasn't his fault. Our lineman didn't block for anything on the play. So I think we're finally moving in the right direction, trying to get an offensive play calling head coach. And it's nice to know that, like, everybody, all of those teams in our division knew they should have lost to us. So it's like nice to know that, like, you should have lost. It's just our incompetent coaching that will hopefully get fixed this offseason.
Well, let's get over into the playoffs because we have a lot to talk about there. And the AFC, it's actually, I saw a stat today which I thought was pretty interesting. Every team in the AFC right now that's in the playoffs has a 75% chance or higher percent chance to make the playoffs that are in the playoffs right now. So it looks like we're pretty deadlocked.
Yeah, honestly, it is pretty deadlocked. I'd say the only ones that might be able to move are the Broncos, Ravens, but they'd have to have a disastrous end of the season, and the Colts would have to just finish off the year amazingly. But truthfully, if you really want it from me, I'd rather see the Broncos in there than the Colts. I think they give a way better matchup versus some of these playoff teams. But some of the matchups, I mean, I'm going to really look forward to looking right now, man. Like the Ravens-Steelers, that's another interdivision matchup in the playoffs. The Bills-Broncos would be fun. That Texans-Chargers game would be fun. Like, this is why playoffs is fun, man, because you get obviously it's the best teams in the league playing against each other in a playoff-style bracket. So obviously it's going to be the best. But just the feels of the game, man. Just some of these teams, like Kansas City, a home game, a Bills home game, Steelers home game. Like, man, those stadiums are gonna be rocking. I mean, rocking. So, like, that's just it makes me get goosebumps right now thinking about getting to watch those games. It's going to be
what
fun.
a defensive and offensive battle, and a battle of
Man.
masterminds it would be with the Texans and Chargers too. I mean,
know.
that game would be absolutely awesome too.
All of these games.
All of
these
these
games are
games.
going to be.
Every single
So-
AFC matchup is awesome so far.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see what this playoffs pack is going to be. But that's not all, because we have the NFC too. And the NFC is just as packed and just as crazy, because we have two teams that are trying to push into their NFC West champion chance, and then we have a team trying to push into the NFC South chance in the West. And it's just nuts.
You know what gets me, Chris, is every year the Falcons division with the Saints and the Buccaneers and the Panthers, one of them always gets into the playoffs with like a losing record or barely a winning record. I mean, like look at the Falcons. They're 6-6 right now. They're the 4th seed, and they're gonna have to play like the Vikings, which that's a matchup for this week that we'll get into. So that could be favorable. But I'm really excited to see some of these NFC teams. The NFC is more, I feel like, is really gritty, and especially this year with like some of the best teams being on the 11-1 Lions, 10-2 Eagles. The Packers could easily finish with over 10 wins. I mean, the Vikings have over 10 wins. If you go back to the AFC, only 2 teams have over 10 wins right now, and only one other one's kind of close. There's 3 right now, with this one being close, or Washington being close. So I'm really excited to see where the NFC playoffs go, and I'm really excited to see if any of the outliers make it in, because I feel like the Falcons are not a lock. The Buccaneers could easily take that spot from them.
They're both tied right now at
Yeah,
6-6.
exactly.
It's so neck and neck. And then also the Seahawks is 7-5.
And the Cardinals, that's another one.
The Cardinals and Rams, all of them 6-6. It's like if the Seahawks start losing, the Rams start winning, the Cardinals start falling apart, all of a sudden the Rams make it in. If the Cardinals start falling apart, if they start winning, the Rams and them start falling. There's so much just parity that can happen.
What's funny is this week there's some big matchups that we're going to get into that are actually playoff that could really mix up the playoffs. I mean, the Falcons play the Vikings that we're going to get into, and then the Cardinals play the Seahawks. So they'll take over the number 1 spot right there in their division. So yeah, I'm really excited for the playoffs this year. I think teams have just gotten better and better each year, like the whole division or whole NFL in itself, and I'm just really excited.
I think we're in really good hands for the future right now in the NFL, like you said, and it's going to be a really good time to see what's going to be happening in the NFL pictures. But we can't just talk about all the great teams, of course, like we have been doing.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the last top 10 picks, which, I mean, it changes every week, but we
Yes.
got a lot coming in, because we have the Jaguars are at 1, the Raiders are at 2, Giants 3, Patriots 4. I mean, we have a lot of teams right now tied for the number 1 pick, and 2 of them need a quarterback, and the other 2 need a big-time playmaker. So you got the Jags and the Patriots facing off for Travis Hunter, and then we got the Shador Sanders sweepstakes against the Raiders and Giants.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to get the number 1 pick between the Giants and the Raiders. They both seem like I think the Giants are tanking more than the Raiders. I mean, they almost beat the Chiefs this last week, so I'm not too sure. And you got to look at it like this. The bottom is so close. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams within 1 win of each other. And any one of these teams could lose out for the rest of the season. And just my opinion, I think Tennessee could take a quarterback. I think the Jets could take a quarterback. I think the Browns could take a quarterback. And I think the Saints could take a quarterback if they lose out for the rest of the season. So this is kind of surprising. I could think the Jaguars could take a quarterback too.
I think the Jaguars could take a quarterback.
It
100%.
hasn't worked out with Trevor Lawrence right now. You take someone underneath him, let him sit underneath Trevor Lawrence, learn a little bit, and if it doesn't work out, you take over. Travis Hunter down there would, not Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders anywhere is going to make an impact. Not even just with play-wise, just with media-wise and just fan-wise. So just don't be surprised. The Raiders and Giants do not have that pick solidified right now. I really would be really surprised if it gets solidified down. I think there's going to be a lot of moving around here in the next couple weeks.
It's been a really fun year of parity, especially with how much different teams can move around. Like you said, the NFC is full of parity. You can have 4 or 5 teams on the outside come in the last week or two, and then of course the top 10 picks we'll never know until the last week, and that's even with a possibility of them losing the last week and having a point differential being the one that breaks it. But this is now going to be a little bit more fun because we got a little bit of a man versus the machine situation that we got. You know, everybody that's watched this a few weeks, we got the Moose versus the Machine segment coming up right here, and it is a lot to go over because I've been in the deadlock with the Moose stat for a few weeks, but then we broke it when it was the week off during the Thanksgiving week, and then the week after I did pretty well. So now we're only 3 games behind. I'm at a 90-40 guessing weight right now, pretty good. And then the Moose stats at a 93-37. So we got to make sure I got to get some wins today, Matt. We got to make sure we get some. But we got to review as well some of the games that we had to go over, and you can clown me if you want to see some of these picks that I made because we got some Week 12 matchups to go over, and that's right. I had picked the Steelers to beat the Browns. Famous Jameis just lit me up that day. I said the Giants were going to be beating the Buccaneers, I believe, that week. That's just a bad call by me. I thought the Giants were going to be on something. Commanders, I thought was guaranteed, and then I thought we could see a little bit of an upset with the Chargers beating the Ravens, but that's not to be.
Fortunately, it wasn't.
Not to be.
And your Cardinals pick, too.
Yeah, my Cardinals pick is a little rough there. I mean, it's the Seahawks, though. It's the same matchup we got coming up this week that we have to talk about. I got to do another pick again on that one. It's a rough one. But we got the Moose stat who completely washed me that week. I mean, I had 6 losses, only had 4, so 2-win differential so far between us. It's been a lot. I mean, we got to see what's going to happen there. They picked the Ravens. They picked the Seahawks. They picked the Buccaneers. I'm just dumb sometimes when I have my NFC East bietism because I am an Eagles fan.
That's not a bad pick though. I thought the Moose stat line and the Moose predictions were good this week. I like those week actually. I like those predictions.
And then week 13, I went on fire. We had to light it up. I had to save myself because it was getting a little drastic. It was getting a little hectic there. I went 5 straight wins where I had the Lions, Cowboys, Packers, Chiefs, and Chargers, but then I went 3 straight and a little bit of a heart attack there with the Bengals, Cardinals, and Patriots losing. Then I went another streak of 3 in a row. Then I lost one to the Jags because the Jags just let me down every single week. And then I went 4 straight, and that was pretty cool. But then we had, of course, the Moose stat have a little bit of a difference there, and it still go for 3 losses as well. So it was a rough back-to-back weeks for me getting my butt handed to me from the Moose stat. But hey, we got a little bit more because
you're close though. You're close.
I'm right there. And we're getting real close. But we know we got a little bit more fun here because it's now our little competition here. We got to see who's going to be taking the right picks this week, and that is my picks here. I'm going to name them out, and we're going to see who is right and wrong. I have my picks. Matt has his picks. The Moose stat has its picks, and we're going to see who's right this week. I'll do a little bit of review again next week for the final episode. We're 1 away. But it's going to be a little fun here. So we have, for me, I said the Lions, Jaguars, Dolphins, Vikings, Saints, Eagles, Steelers, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Bills, Niners, Chargers, and Bengals are all going to be winning. And I know you have a few that disagree with me on that one.
Yeah, so some of the ones I disagree with is I think the Titans are going to beat the Jaguars. I think that the Falcons are actually going to beat the Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins is going to come back. He's very comfortable in Minnesota. I think he's actually going to beat the Vikings. We're pretty dead even on the middle 5. And then the bottom 4, the last 2 are changed. I think the Bears are going to beat the 49ers. Thomas Brown taking the interim head coach. You know, he's changed the culture a little bit already there. And I'm really excited to see what he does. And then I don't think the Chiefs will lose at home. If it was an away game at the Chargers, I think that they would probably lose. But the Chiefs at home are almost impossible to beat because of the atmosphere and the fan base that they have there and Patrick Mahomes in that stadium. So I think that the rest of them you're totally right on, but those ones I got to go the opposite way with.
And then, of course, we have the Moose stats predictions here because it's been on fire as well. I mean, it's lighting me up. It's 93-37 right now. It's on, I think, around 80% win rate right now, which is absolutely berserk. I couldn't believe it when I was looking at that numbers. But it has the Lions, Titans. It agrees with you on the Titans. It disagrees with me on that one. It has the Dolphins, the Vikings. It has the Saints, Eagles, Steelers, Buccaneers, Cardinals, Bills, Seahawks, Chiefs, and Bengals. I mean, it agrees with you on the Chiefs situation. I don't blame it. I think the Cardinals situation, do we all have the Cardinals winning? I believe we do have all have the Cardinals winning. So
that's an interesting one, Moose, because it agrees with you on the Vikings one, which is pretty obvious. It picks most of the favorites, which is obvious when it comes to stat stuff. And I think in the Cardinals game, I actually think the Seahawks would technically be the favorite in that game, if I'm not mistaken. They beat them last time. So I think they might be the favorites in that game. So it's kind of interesting that the stat prediction picked that one as the winner for this week. Because, I mean, me and you have them as the winner for this week, too.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting about that is I'll tell you a little bit more about that. The Moose stat before, when it had the Seahawks at home, I gave a 3-point advantage normally, so I add 3 to every single stat for the home field advantage. See, it normally does benefit out the right way. So the Cardinals at home have their 3-point advantage, but when the Seahawks are at home, the Seahawks would beat the Cardinals by 0.2 points from the Moose stat, which is absolutely absurd. They're that close of a team.
I think they played them at home 2 weeks ago, and they beat them by almost that. So.
And the Moose stat predicted that they would win those 2 weeks ago. If you guys look back at the week 12, it did say the Seahawks would beat the Cardinals, which is absolutely insane. So the Moose stat is right when it comes to certain things. So it's hard to argue against it. But at the same time, I do think that the Titans don't have enough juice for the Jaguars because they do have a win under Mac Jones, but like there's so many drop touchdown passes for the Jaguars, and they keep it so close every single week. They almost beat the Texans this week. So like I think they're a really good team. They can beat the Titans. They just got to make sure they can play good and just keep it going the same like they have been the entire year. But
yeah, I agree.
I think that's going to be all for us here on the Moose Trail, Matt. Yeah. This has been a really fun week. I mean, one of the last 2 weeks we got here. I know it's going to be your last week. I think you're doing finals, right, this week?
Yes. So it's been fun. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I think that I'm really interested to see how my picks do against the machine and against yours, and I'm really excited to see how this next upcoming week for the NFL and NCAA goes. So, yeah.
Well, Matt, it's been an honor, man.
Of course.
I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you. Shout out to Will. Shout out to Jake. You guys killed it this week as well, and we'll see you guys next week for the finale of the Moose Trail. I'll see you guys later.